Started. Cool. So, do you want to, should I just go into it, or do we have any other kind of agenda?
Okay. Anything else? Can I tell Janine to maybe open this document on the platform so that she like the one I printed?
You want me to do that?
Oh, just tell her since she's online.
Okay.
Yeah,
So John, can you hear us? Shake your head if you can hear us. Okay, cool. So if you want to go to the platform, I posted in the working group leaders group a few weeks ago a document that we will be using to review today. It's also the presentation that Savannah has on the screen. Can you see the presentation as well?
I'm not sharing it.
Okay, she's gonna share it. Okay, she's gonna share it in a second. The presentation on the screen is like an abbreviated version, but the PDF, or I don't know if it's a PDF, but whatever link is in the platform is more extensive. So she's going to start sharing now, and we're going to start going through this. So basically, as we round out our first year or first term of our working groups, we want to kind of sit and talk about what went well and what could be improved, and what changes to the process and structure we should consider. And the best way to do that is to talk to you all who have been involved in it. And so you guys are actually, you're kind of our last group, except for food production is broken into two parts because they decided to have 2 1-hour meetings instead of 1 2-hour meeting. So we got about halfway done with them, but they have already kind of been through the process. So this is kind of our last stop on this process. And then what we're going to do today is we're going to, I'm not going to say quickly go through these topics, but we are going to try to get through all 9 of them. On the working group leaders platform page, there is this information in more detail, plus, okay, is there a link to the form?
Yes.
Okay, plus a link to a Google form in which everybody needs to complete. There are a few very simple questions, and then there are questions that are not required that are basically these. So if we don't get time to finish this in this meeting today, we want you to go in and contribute your thoughts to the parts we didn't finish. Also, if there's something that you didn't want to share in the group today, but you want it to be taken into consideration, that is also a space to do it. So everybody has to fill out the form. There are, I think, 4 required questions. 2 of them are your name. And then the other 2 are, did you learn anything? Will you apply what you learned? So it's really not that hard.
Okay.
And then if you have additional comments that were not covered today for whatever reason, you can also do that. Those are not required. So you don't have to add additional information, but we want to give you the opportunity to.
Awesome.
And so at our September 25th social and feedback, we will come with the aggregated responses across all 3 groups. And we'll quickly talk about kind of what next steps look like. And then we will celebrate our success as our first term comes to an end. I'm also kind of using cohort and term interchangeably. Probably shouldn't have done that, but we did. So we're calling you cohort 1, but it's also our first term of working group leaders. So, like I said, there are 9 kind of like segments that we want to talk about. So we'll start with the first one. Oh yeah, so this is kind of just what I just talked about. Yep, you're good. So the very first segment is how the working groups were determined. So at the end of 2024, kind of crazy to think how long ago it was, that was when we were finishing up phase 2. And at that time we had the 6 program ambassadors, Savannah being one of them. And we asked all of our members in our network to participate in an exit interview, basically. And in that exit interview, it was questions about, did you enjoy the summit? Is Homegrown Hillsborough useful for you? And at the very end, we asked our members to rank out of, I think, maybe 5 or 7 topics, the top 3. So those top 3 topics were food production, food access, and economic development. That was what made up the 3 distinct working groups. So our suggestion going forward, and so I also need to clarify this, our suggestion is not the end all. That in fact it should not be. If you all disagree with us, which other groups have disagreed with us on some of these things, that's great, because at the end of the day, our role in these working groups is really to just press record on the button and to do the like hosting. It is not to provide direction. It is not like we want these to be as working group leader directed as possible. And so our suggestion might be different than your suggestion, and that this is what this is all about. So our suggestion, based on what we've heard across groups, is instead of having 3 different groups, to have one large working group. The working group would not have a theme to it. It would just be Homegrown Hillsborough Food System Working Group. Within that working group, individuals that wanted to advocate for certain things would have to do that on their own. So if you are a dietitian and nutrition is really important to you, then it is on you to make sure that the working group outcome, the project, the program, the initiative, whatever it is, includes an angle that satisfies your desire. We didn't really talk about it in extreme detail, but we don't think that having specific seats for specific topics serves us, because what we've seen, actually the Pasco County food system was a good example of this, is when you have seats that are very specific, it can be hard to recruit for those seats. So for example, if we want to have a working group with one person being a dietitian, one person being a city government employee, and one person being a small business, if we can't get those seats, then we have empty seats. Versus if we just do an open call and try to get seats and have those vantage points represented. So it's, there's a lot to learn from other groups, but we kind of think that having one working group in which members are it's up to them to advocate for the vantage point that they want to see. What do you all think?
I think we've talked about that multiple times just in our own meetings, like how there's just so much overlap between what we've been working on. So I think that it makes sense for sure.
Yeah, I think going from 3 to 1, but I think it needs to be some sort of structure and guidance within that. Like, so looking at what the goals of cohort 2 and term 2 based on like deliverables, what is that topic or overarching goal of the group? And then who's needed, and those are desired positions, but that can all kind of desired roles, but can also be flexible, right? So if you can't get a registered dietitian, can you get a certified nutritionist, right? Or if you can't get a producer that's 10 acres or more, like just thinking about what your goals are for the cohort and how can we accelerate or expand on what happened in cohort 1. So is it evaluation of programs, data, but going into it without a goal and focus of the working group, I wouldn't know why I would want to join, right? So
well, I think from the state's perspective, that's kind of like we facilitate the meetings, but it's up to the members to establish the goals. And so that's kind of like you get the group and then, they discuss their priorities and figure out from there what the goal is. So
you do bring up an interesting point, which is what I wrote down. We will get to elections, basically how do we appoint these new leaders of a one working group? And it would be, and one of the things that I was struggling with is so you have 5 positions that are being running for, but are you ready for treasurer? Are you just ready to be a part? And then are you elected into those roles from there? And you bring up an interesting point. And if you were to run 2 people, there was an election period and 2 people became the chairs, but then they identified the next group. Anyways, it's just an interesting potential other model. They could set the goal.
And I understand what Amanda's saying about the group setting, how we did. We set our goals. We set more of what is the ultimate goal of this working group?
It's to make it's a strong food system.
Perfect.
Right?
Okay.
That would be it. It would be the Homegrown Hillsborough mission, vision, and values.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
but I think it makes sense then in the future to do what you're saying, because then, you're establishing the working group and then they're continuing the work that the first cohort's doing, so it makes more sense to then migrate to that sort of structure.
Yeah. And we'll talk a little bit about how we came to our current chair leadership, which you guys were a part of, and then, how we went.
But I think the 1 instead of 3, at least the leaders working together, and if there's subcommittees or different
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say.
projects,
Other groups,
mini grants become a subcommittee type of execution
exactly.
program.
And so the food access group was actually pretty opposed to this idea, because they are scared of not having a distinct place for food access or for
See,
economic
I come in
development.
from my perspective, like, I would love to be working with the food access ones because, I mean, my role at the city's economic development, but I'm more passionate about the food access stuff, so I feel like I don't have the time to do both
Yeah.
groups, so us all being together will
Yeah.
help me as the city find more resources to support the food access
And they were saying the
initiatives.
same thing, but they were basically saying they want to try to have committees.
Mhm.
So you have a at-large working group board, and then you would have committees, and within those committees, like network members can be part of those, but like the decision making is coming from this, and we'll talk about this later, but we got 5 leaders. Because ultimately it's very similar to local government.
Right.
Decisions are going to be made by elected leaders, but those elected leaders should be working at the guidance of the members at large. So yeah, I think that one of the things that this also kind of brings up is like meetings. You know, and so the reality is that there's a lot of work to do. In order to get that work done, you have to have meetings. How many meetings are too many meetings? How many meetings are too little meetings? And so we kind of thought that based on the feedback that we've heard, that one working group meeting and then the subcommittees can kind of go on their own and depend in their own cadence. Maybe they are ad hoc until they finish a goal. Maybe it's the fundraising committee and they have one fundraiser, and then after that fundraiser, that committee's dissolved until the next one. But this is stuff that we don't really know either, so we'd have to go and learn about these different types of structures.
Yeah, I will say, I think that the way the original groups were, just as feedback, were selected and planned was very detailed, thoughtful, holistic. I think you did a really great job of providing the survey, analyzing the feedback, right, and creating very high-level buckets that allowed us to kind of dig into those pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for that first year, it did allow us to kind of look into the food access side, right? Look at what it looks like from economic development, have different conversations with producers. So I think laying that foundation now, the knowledge is there to kind of combine it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the 3 main categories were aligned with what we're seeing within food system work.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved that it was very inclusive and a lot of conversation, and was chosen by the members of that.
Mm-hmm. And that's what it's really all about, is that this isn't our food system, this is the Homegrown Hillsborough Network's food system. So before we move on to the next one, Janai, do you have any comments or any agreements, disagreements?
No, I like the idea of going to one large working group, but then maybe breaking up into subcommittees to make sure that some of those, like for instance, the food access, like that doesn't go away, or it's not, like pushed off to the side. I think that would be a really good way to still maintain those important, key focuses. So, but, yeah, good
Cool. Thank you. So the next section, which Nicole was kind of starting to talk about a little bit, was how the application and selection of these working group members. So our intention always was to basically lead on the selection for the first cohort, but to have the rest of the cohorts going forward be elected. So we didn't want to get in the habit of basically appointing people for a few reasons. One, the application period was pretty lengthy. Like it took hours for us to create an application, to administer it, allow people to respond, and then we had to get together and create a way to filter out everything. And so what we think would be good going forward is for network-wide voting. And so how we kind of ask for this to be done, or how we think it could be done, once again, not up to us, is that current working group leaders, since you guys are already familiar with this role, this position, you could either self-nominate if you want to stay in, which would be welcomed. We haven't even talked about term limits. I don't think we need to talk about term limits. Like, to me, it's until we have people fighting over these positions, we don't need to talk about stuff like, not allowing someone to do it. But you could either self-nominate, or you can nominate other people that you think would be a good fit. And that nomination process kind of works in a few ways. One, it if you see somebody who's kind of been sitting on the sidelines that you think would really benefit from a nudge into leadership, that's a really good way to do that. You can nominate them. We'll call them and say, you've been nominated. Do you accept it? They might be scared. They might say, I don't know what I'm doing. And we'll say, no worries. We'll train you. And that develops more leadership. It also allows you all to kind of tap into the relationships that you've made that maybe we don't know about, because we see you through these meetings. You see everybody else out through your day-to-day lives. And so for working group leaders to self-nominate or nominate other people, and that would happen in the September meeting, so like technically next month. And then that would be kind of the start of these nominations. But then in October, we would open nominations network-wide on the platform. And so people could self-nominate themselves or nominate others. All through October, this nomination process would be open. And then November 1st until the Wednesday of the conference. So we're hoping that the conference will continue to be this mid-November date. And so November 1st through, for this year, it'll be November 18th. People will be voting on those nominations. And then ideally on Thursday of the conference, we can announce the working group leaders for the next year. And so we were thinking that this would be maybe a useful way of doing it, because in theory, our annual conference should be this gathering of the network. We want our members to start seeing this conference as a thing that they plan for annually, that they know it's useful and valuable to attend, and that this is when the Homegrown Hillsborough network all comes together. So at the check-in table, when we were giving name tags out, we could say, have you voted? Over here are the nominations, go submit your vote. So we're hoping that it could get more votes than if we were to send out a platform post that people may or may not read. And so, of our network of 300 and something people, if we have 120 of them come to the conference plus some voting ahead of time, then ideally we could get 100 votes throughout these nominations, which I think would really reflect the power of these nominations.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, it's just a homeless guy I haven't seen around in a while. Glad to see you.
I saw him earlier today.
That's great.
So, and then we'll talk about this in the next section, but once these nominations are announced in November, then December would be the start of this new term, but December would be working group leaders would start their online learning. That would be a prereq for their leadership retreat. We'll talk about that more in a little bit, but just to kind of round out what September, October, November, December would look like at the end of these terms. So as far as application and selection, what do you all think?
Yeah, I think that's a fair process. Especially, I mean, my only concern would be like, okay, well, if it's like, say it's like 4 farmers who get elected but then the same point that you made earlier, like then if you're trying to delegate people for specific roles, then you sit at a problem with the opposite problem as you have only 3 people. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's
these can all be, like they can be amended as we go. And so, if we have an overflow, to me, it's like until we're bursting at the seams.
Yeah, I get that. I get that for sure. I get that.
But and so also the other groups had concerns over basically like in this proposal, there's no application. People are just basically submitting their name. Other groups said that they would like to include in that nomination process basically a attestation. Is that what they're calling it?
Yeah. And that version does make the most sense to me, where you're like immediately agreeing to, I'm available on these days. I accept this payment term, right? Like I have the capacity to provide 10 hours of whatever extra work, right? So like that attestation piece to be like, you don't end up in the role and be like, well, I thought it was only going to be a 5-hour commitment. So it's not so much an application as a attestation. And then another group, but maybe we don't want to feed you that idea. So what do you think?
I would say for the voting, or since there's no application, how are the people who are nominating themselves explaining who they are?
Yeah,
So
that's what I was thinking.
So the next piece is another group had the idea of basically a booklet of everybody would answer the same set of questions, but opposed to us reviewing it like an application, it would be what's available as reading material to decide if you like the
For
person
sure,
and their
for
ideas.
sure.
You know what I'm saying?
That makes sense.
Yeah. kind of like
Otherwise, people
political-
are just gonna be like,
Yeah.
you know, how they show up on election
Yeah,
day for the judges and stuff, just picking someone's name.
So stepping back,
Basically their platform.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
prescribe the questions.
Yeah.
so you said 5 people to be elected.
And that's a later segment, we can talk about
Okay.
that. We could talk, no, we propose 5, but it could be 7, it could be 9, it
Got
could be
it,
13, it
okay.
has to be on number.
So right now, this is just the process, not the.
Not everyone can get paid for them.
Yeah.
Really
So-
unquestioned too. Really unquestioned too.
So I agree, I think that some sort of, why would you choose me, right? Give people the platform to share why they're interested, I like that a lot. Because then if you don't know a candidate and you just see their name on Homegrown Hillsborough and you're trying to do some research to learn, like the research is kind of right there for you to vote as far as, what do they do or how do they answer some of these questions? I really like that too.
Okay. We didn't really talk about this other group, but it's an idea that we bounced around. If at the conference there was an opportunity to engage with the people who are running,
I guess we could have a panel, like a card,
Yeah.
like one of the lectures.
Yeah.
Times could be elections but we want to have
or like a
there.
lunchtime or something like that.
Yeah.
But would that be?
Or
something-
even just I don't know, a button or something that people
Oh.
know, like, hey, I'm running for this, so they
Yeah.
can, I don't know.
It identified on their badge and
Yeah,
on board, obviously.
Because it's do people really want to listen to people's pitches, you know?
It's lots of time to put in if you then aren't chosen, right?
Yeah.
And also there could be 15 people, right?
Yeah.
So it's
And then it would cause people not to vote ahead of time either.
Mm-hmm. True.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point too. Okay, so it's just more like asking about my
Mhm.
what I'll do for a working group or something like that. But great. Any other thoughts about this section? We got a no head shake from Jen. All right, we can go on to the next then.
Cool. So how we onboarded you all. So actually all 3 of you were at the leadership retreat, which is great. Some other groups we had turnover, so some people weren't part of it, so they don't really remember. But just to recap what it was, 2-day person retreat at Extension. We did things like take headshots, discuss leadership styles, collective impact, community development, grant writing, STAR goals. We had some speakers, we paid for lunch, things like that. The total cost of that was $4,000 without including the cost for renting a space. That was free from Extension. So now that you kind of know what $4,000 got us for future retreats, it might be worth considering. What we would suggest going forward, we kind of heard that 2 full days was a lot. And so what we thought would be useful is now that we have the online learning modules, to use those as foundational courses, as well as other online training courses that are specific to food systems, maybe some that are not specific to food systems, but there are. The Food System Leadership Network has online modules that you can do at your own pace based on food system leadership. So we would require that those get done throughout December, and that would be basically your homework when you come to a one day in-person retreat. And that would be where we do things like headshots. You all meet each other in person. We take some of the concepts that you learned online and actualize them in real life. And so what do you all think about that, length of commitment, 2 days versus 1 day versus no days, online learning, things like that? And I guess maybe into the question that we haven't really asked before is, what do you wish you had known now that you have been a leader for a term? What didn't we cover that needed to be covered?
I thought the retreat was a good way to get to know our teammates, but I agree though, especially since we're all gonna be taking 3 days for the conference in November, and then asking people to take another 2 days so soon afterwards, it's probably easier to do it this model to allow them some flexibility to get some of those other components done.
I thought the in-person retreats were great to establish the kind of the brand of the goals of the group, the brand, how we're going to lead, what does that look like? So I thought that was really good. I do think it could be online. I think I really valued the collective impact model, because that was something that was kind of one of those aha moments to see how all those pieces come into play, but that also can be an online learning. But I do like the one day versus the 2 day, especially like thinking about it, like, okay, we're at the retreat and then coming into that. So
Yeah, because I definitely still think it's important to have that in person to, just have everyone together. This is the team. How do we, and in-person meetings I find are a little bit more impactful. So yeah.
I agree. I think for the day that is in person though, like really, really focus on connection and doing a lot of maybe not networking, but I don't know, like discussions, like interaction versus we go. So I think maybe like the online part, you really dive into some of the lessons that, like the collective impact, like that was super like amazing. I agree with Nicole on that. So like the online part, you really dive into the lessons and the leadership training, but then the in-person, I feel like really, really should be like folks getting to know each other, interaction, lots of discussion, that kind of stuff. So, but I do support going down to like a 1 day in person. I think that would be awesome.
So real quick, we heard half day. What do you think about half day?
No.
Yeah.
Not long enough.
I think 1 day, I think that the value of being in person, getting to know each other, the team building that comes and the camaraderie of being in person, very, very different than being on a screen.
Mm-hmm.
But for people like me who like to think things and digest, and so some of the more heavy learning things online is fine because then you can go back, rewind, pause, whatever you need to do. But in terms of building that connection as a group, I feel like it needs to be in person. And 1 day, I think half a day is too short. By the time you sit down, it's time to leave.
Yeah, you miss.
We agree.
And then you miss lunch, and lunch is such a good
that's what
time.
we had to say. We had such great conversations
Yeah.
during that.
Yeah.
that
Love lunch.
And then one of the things that might, be helpful too, because we did collective impact last year, but maybe even like a leadership assessment, right? So then you know where.
We didn't do one.
Did you do like the dominant?
I know we talked a lot about
Did you
one.
do one?
It was like a one that we did before, I think.
Yeah,
That
we
we came
did it
in
ahead
with
of time.
it. Yeah.
Five.
Yes. Okay. Yes, we did. We
Okay.
did. Okay.
Which
So
we really wanted to do the Myers-Briggs, but we have to pay for.
got it.
And it's so expensive.
It is very
Yeah, but now that there's less members, it could be more realistic now
Yeah.
because historically
And I've
we
done-
have teams too many people.
One that I do that was just, I thought John Maxwell's was really good. It was through Leadership Pasco. I felt like there was a lot that came from it. They happen to have a
What are
facilitator.
John Maxwell's like, what's the number? I'm just curious.
dominant, inclusive,
Oh, okay.
like,
But it's not the letters. It's not like it's not a.
it's letters. It's D. I have mine here. I'll look it up.
Because Myers-Briggs is, you become like a LNTJ or something, LNJT.
Oh,
Same
yes.
thing, same
Okay.
thing, different, similar words, right, within the, yes. Let me pull it up.
Myers-Briggs not confused, because then there's the one that you're.
I know there's so many, to be
That's
honest.
the what? That one starts with an E. My sister's super into it. I forget.
Yeah.
Enneagram or something.
The one?
Enneagram is that?
Oh, Enneagram. That's the
Yeah,
number
yeah.
one.
Oh, yeah, that's the number one. Yeah.
Yeah, so then you're like a 7. Or
Yeah,
8
yeah.
Or whatever.
I have not done
But-
that.
I know. Yeah. My sister's always like, I know you're this one, and I'm like, okay. I don't know what that means.
The popular ones are good because people do know them,
Mhm.
so you can actually like take that. It's crazy, but in the business world, to know your number.
It's
is a
yeah,
real conversation, you know?
And it's helpful just to know.
Yeah, I've had people walk up to me in comments and be like, "You're a 7," or you're like, "That's an insult, but that's fine."
Well, thank you.
I'm proud of it.
I think that's what my sister said. One
Yeah.
of those is what she said I was too.
It's
So
basically
very-
about, like outgoing
Yeah.
numbers or whatever, you know.
But I thought that those are fun
Yeah.
as like icebreakers, but then also knowing the strengths and
Totally.
how communication is amongst the leaders.
Absolutely.
Funny.
Which again, for a smaller group, that's more possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you call that, what did you call it, entagram? What was it?
Enneagram.
Enneagram.
Yeah.
Enneagram's the number one, and then Myers-Briggs is the like ENTJ. Like,
Cool.
I know anyways, those are the two most popular. from what I understand.
Cool.
Okay, so any other thoughts around this section? We can keep going without Monica.
I think that probably the feedback that it was too long was depending on the profession of the person.
Yeah.
Right? Because even 2 days for everything that we covered. Like I feel like the training was very well put together, and it covered a variety of topics to kind of prepare us for what we were going into. So it was like, this is where we started, this is where we are right now, this is the direction we would like to go. It might be a little challenging to do it in one day, but that might be what that feedback was from. Like, you're pulling me 2 days away from this that I'm doing. It's a lot of days, and now I come back and I have other things to do.
Mhm.
But
And also the fact that a lot of these leaders will not have gone through this first training, right? Like realistically, Adele will get that many like totally
Yes.
random new
Yes.
people, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so the one day
then it
is-
would be sufficient because it's the same
Yeah,
people. Yeah,
exactly.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes.
Okay, cool. Great. I think we can go on, yeah. I think we can go keep going. Okay, so determining the goals and strategies of working groups. So you guys were all part of that, but we created STAR goals during April and May. We use those STAR goals to help manage the rest of the year. What we're suggesting, or the rest of the term, is to do a better job of adapting existing successful food system goals based on, and then utilizing market research really, and existing resources to like make those more specific to our working group. But that way we're kind of, especially if we think about removing kind of those topics of food access, food production, and economic development, we think that pulling from existing food system plans and then just adapting them to our model would be better than starting from a blank slate, with the goal of maybe like knowing if another group has advanced that goal already and how they did it. And that market research piece being like calling up those organizations. I mean, you do a really good job of this in your own work, but calling up those organizations, visiting them, right? Like if they're closer by, but being able to really set, you know, the information's already out there. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, kind of is the mentality that we're having, especially if we're trying to work at a bigger scale, and by that I mean with more people. So what are your all thoughts about that? You reflecting on the goal process, your achievement of those goals, and then could we have done it differently?
I mean, they will give more flexibility than our goals that we had, just because with everyone's interest areas being in one group, it's going to have to be a little bit more vague, you know. And us, you know, we had these goals to increase their revenue by 20%, and then we're shifted so many times because it just wasn't feasible for what we had. So yeah, I think.
Well, I think that what I liked is that we were able to be flexible within the goals, right? So when we got into it, we realized like they don't have the capacity to increase.
Yeah.
Those that are willing
There's
to
so many
participate
steps before
didn't
that.
have the capacity to grow 20% more. What did that look like? So then it became a shift in the, okay, how do we get them to see what 20% more looks like? But I do really like the idea of not recreating the wheel. There's so much research, and at this point, I think that a group together is more going to be able to establish some implementation or some.
I think so too.
I think that, and there's just so many great situations and different things that have happened, examples of systems that are being built that we can learn from. And what I love about being in this space is you call anybody in any of these. No one says, "Well, I'm not going to help you." Yeah. They're like, "How can I help? And so I think that, and it also will create relationships maybe that grow the Homegrown Hillsborough network, especially if you're looking at things that have happened in Hillsborough County within food system research too.
Yeah, and that stops us from creating a goal like we did, where it's like not feasible, because we're going to see what the first steps are going to be to get to these more specific goals.
Yeah, and that's where market research is so valuable, because you do call somebody up and they say, yeah, but we forgot about this, and this. So maybe you guys should just focus on that part. Yeah.
Think about this.
Yeah, because we said,
That's my favorite. Share everything that went wrong first. Yes. That's where you learn the most, I think. With the goals, I would tell you that we are great at creating goals, but when it comes time to actually doing the things, there's a lot of discussions around things and a lot of hesitance to divide and move things forward, which has been really frustrating for me, because I don't want to be like, okay, I'm going to take it from you, but then it kind of just stays. So I read somewhere in here, it talks about better definition of roles. I don't remember which one it is, but I read it in there. So I appreciated seeing that in there, because I feel like that's what I was frustrated with the most. Because you're in a space where you want everybody to like you and you want to have that good group cohesion, but without that proper structure, then how do you really say, okay, you said you were going to send this in, but it's not here, where is it? I can't do my part until I get your part, kind of thing. So everything else was great. Like we had that workshop for setting the goals and we discussed them, and always, Sabrina's always been amazing at helping us put everything together, but that's the only feedback I have. I don't know how you can summarize that into one sentence, but that was the only frustration I had there.
Yeah, actually, I just made me think of something. So we talked about goals on this slide, but something else we did was the acre, which was an attempt to kind of think about the implementation plan, like how you move from goal to action. And I think you want to speak to that. Like I said, it's not something we included in this, but I think it, to me, was valuable to, and like we learned about acre after we set our goals, but in hindsight, would have done that acre process as our goal setting process. Anyways, I'd be curious to know how you guys felt about that. Like, I guess that was like a midterm kind of realignment of our goals.
Yes.
But how did you guys feel about that? Did you find that that day valuable? Should it be incorporated in the beginning of it all?
I think so. Well, I mean, I guess every meeting is going to be kind of like the gathering of all of the groups. That's what I thought was so valuable about it, is that everybody was there giving their feedback at once instead of us all working in our silos. But you're already adjusting that.
Yeah.
I thought the acre training was awesome. I thought it was a great kind of catalyst, and then again bringing us all back together within that. I really valued that a lot.
I really like that you were able to move forward when there was, what was the term that they used? The consensus. It was a good way to just move forward. Okay, we agree to disagree and let's move forward.
Yeah, we agree to disagree, but it's not that crucial. Yeah.
Exactly. So I really like that it brought that component, because I do think that even though we weren't using it in that sense, it did, after that point, it did help us move forward in consensus in other areas. So absolutely, that was a beneficial training.
Well, the acre is a good example of an existing strategy.
Yeah.
There's lots of step-by-step checklists, toolkits for doing these types of things. And we kind of found that as we already got started, but going forward, maybe an acre training in the beginning. Maybe that is like the leadership retreat.
That's what I'm saying, like the goal setting process being more of a strategic action plan setting process, especially for if your goal is pretty well proved by another region, area, whatever. It's not so much about like, is this the right goal or not? It's more so about how we now implement this, right?
You took the acre training. You took the acre training. Did you? Yeah. Okay, so would that be too much to require working group leaders to go through, like the online 3-module?
I thought it was helpful and valuable.
I don't think so. I think it's.
I
think it would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would take it again. To be honest, I'd go through. I mean, I'd still reference it on different things, even as I'm going to a meeting right after this, right? And there's just little tidbits in there that you just continue to pull and use.
Yeah,
I would probably go through it again,
especially if some of the people were former leaders that already went through it, and then if you want them all on the same way, it makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. And that's how I feel about leadership trainings in general, which is like after you go through so many of them, you're like, okay, yeah, I know these things, but I still learn things from leadership trainings. And even if it's just a different perspective on the same old thing, that stuff is valuable. And once again, until we're like bursting at the seams, or so we're so oversaturated with leadership trainings, like I don't think there's any harm in doing it. So yeah, we hadn't really considered maybe doing the online acre training as part of the onboarding process for working group leaders. So just talk about engaging other stakeholders and
and to me the whole action plan of it all is just the best outcome. I think the goals are hard to implement because when you set a goal like increase revenue by 20%, it's like what revenue, right? And there's no critique to you.
No,
it's just the details.
It wasn't a great goal.
But the details are what's important, right? In goal setting.
And that's why we spent so many meetings just being like, hey, what are we doing? Like, how are we getting to these goals, so.
And I think part of that also was that not everybody was in the room, right? So we set these goals assuming that there was already something in place. But then it wasn't until we went to talk to the producers that they're like, I don't even have enough beds to increase 20%. How do you want me to So maybe having all the piece which then goes back to supporting the other changes to the model. Everybody's already at the table, the conversations are more productive.
Yeah.
For sure.
Great. Any final thoughts, Janine, about this section?
No, I think the power of going to a larger group will help with this, because I think someone had said it before that if we had a little bit more insight into the food production group and what they're facing, I think when we were initially setting those goals, we probably would have gotten goals that were a little bit more realistic. But it was nice to have the flexibility to update those goals. But I think that will be one really good outcome from going to a larger model, is that more people will be at the table from different perspectives, rather than us kind of working together and assuming what might be a attainable goal, and really it may not be, but we don't have those voices at the table to make those decisions. So yeah.
Okay. So this next section is an important one, and it's one that we have a suggestion for, of course, but we would really like to know how you guys feel, because ultimately it does come down to the individual group's ability to hold others accountable, right? So in cohort 1, we allowed up to 2 it's about meeting attendance. Sorry if everyone's not reading the slide, it's about meeting attendance. But in cohort 1, we allowed for up to 2 excused absences and 2 virtual attendance. The reality was manual attendance tracking was difficult to sustain, and we didn't really have, part of the carrot, I guess, was about continuing education and being eligible for those funds, but we didn't feel like we were able to enforce it. So our suggestion going forward is to transition to a point-based system for in-person attendance. So integrate point deductions that directly impact working group funding. So if you get too many points, you are not eligible for a certain amount of funding, because ultimately attendance would then lead to judicious use of those funds, right? The secretary, and we're going to get into like roles and kind of the division of roles and having that better delineated, but a secretary would be responsible for attendance tracking and reporting. And what we really mean by that is going to the platform and updating the events to, like, they said they were yes, where they actually yes. Because on our back end, we can edit attendees on events. And so you would have access to that. You met already, but being able to like reallocate it so we can keep track of it better. But yeah, point-based system was our way of thinking. Maybe everybody would be mad at a person for not showing up if they knew it affected their funding, and you would feel more responsible if you knew it affected your funding, and kind of shifting kind of the carrot.
Well, and Janine just kind of finished that last point with like having a seat at the table. Well, part of having a seat at the table is showing up, and we all totally get that this is not your full-time job. Like, I think the way we imagine Homegrown Hillsborough is that 90%, maybe even 95% of your day is your job that you get paid to do, and then ideally that 5 to 10% is you breaking off to contribute to the greater network. Mm-hmm. And so, how to kind of stay within that 5 to 10% of your total working time, but also getting stuff done. Because if we meet 1 hour every 6 months, we'll never get anything done. But at the same time, I don't think people have the ability to meet for 20 hours a week, right? That's just not what you get paid to do.
I want to add one thing that I forgot to say. This point basis is going to be based on our current attendance requirements. We can reset those attendance requirements. So our thing that maybe isn't a suggestion to attendance is there must be an in-person component to whatever the meeting cadence, schedule, working group structure is. It doesn't have to look exactly like it did in cohort 1, but we are going to maintain that some sort of these cannot become strictly virtual meetings. And that's because we think that this changes how we work, right? So whatever that structure becomes, there must be, the non-suggestion is there must be an in-person component, but the suggestion is how do we then hold people accountable to that component, or sorry, the meeting cadence.
And like the point system we were thinking of is like, well, so if we go to one big working group, that also changes the funding, because instead of having 3 different buckets of funding, now it's maybe 1 bucket of funding. And so if it, like, everyone's attendance is 1 point, and then if 10 points, now it's, minus $500 from the big pot. So it's like at an individual level, if you wake up and you just cannot make a meeting, you are not going to necessarily, like, that's not detrimental for you. If you have a habit of it, then it turns out you are probably the person that's causing it. So just something like, we want to allow for flexibility, but also like our goal is that people take these meetings seriously, they plan for it. I very much believe that people make time for things they care about. I have had people call me and say, hey, somebody more important than you is scheduling a meeting with me, therefore I'm canceling my meeting with you. Totally get that, right? It happens. Like, if your big boss calls and said, hey, I'm available at Thursday at 2 p.m. to meet with you, and you're meeting with me, you go, sorry, Monica, my big boss calls and I have to, right? So like, or if like the, president of USF wants to have a meeting with you and they say, I'm available at this time, you make time for it, And so how can we basically create that level of like distinction and prestigiousness amongst each other? And not see these as like kind of throwaway times. So, and this is a bigger conversation than just like Homegrown Hillsborough, because if you have been in any cross collaborative work, this.
Yeah. So I think instead of penalizing, maybe reverse it and incentivize. So I think that there's a level of like, you earn more. Okay. It's the same thing in reality when you're doing the budget, but 100% attendance, you get a pizza party. What we do at this school. Totally. So like if 100% attendance, it just is a little bit different in that way. Because I think we all try our best, to be honest. For sure. And I know, like, I'd be that person showing up sick. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I don't want you to lose money. So.
Which again, we could still have the excuse, like, the way that's structured.
I think that there's a different, like, I just think there's a better feeling within it.
For sure.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Yeah.
Something like a true parent.
Yeah.
Or an old HR.
The stickers on your sticker chart.
Something
your sticker. So funny. At Target, we would do like Thanksgiving when they came to work. They got a sticker for the week, and then whoever had 5 stickers, they were all entered into a $100 gift card drawing. And it just is so fun. But they were so excited to put their sticker on the. Stuff. Like,
I like stickers.
Yeah.
You should see my laptop.
And then they're recognized and seen, right? Like, that was the other thing of like their leaders acknowledging that they're there on like a tough day.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's true.
No, that.
And I don't know if we actually talk about this, like, meeting cadence. I guess that's what we're leading up to them to decide.
Yeah, but
what do you think is like an appropriate cadence?
These are monthly meetings, and another group did move to doing 2 1-hour meetings in a month, but they do them exclusively virtual, or was it personal?
One virtual, one in person.
Yeah.
I kind of like the longer one meeting.
I agree with that. And then if there's a need, maybe a flexible, like, 2-week follow-up that's on like a virtual check-in. So like you were saying, the things
there needs
that
to
we
be
say
like
we're
a touch point in between, and it doesn't need to be a formal meeting, but there needs to be some kind of touch point in between, because things do fall off.
Yeah.
And it's not on purpose. Things just fall off. It's like whatever's yelling at you the loudest is what pays attention. So, a touch point in between. So it'd be like, hey, gentle reminder to.
So usually value is something we never implemented, that we talked about, office hours. And really the idea behind it was having that touch point, less so with what our goal, again, I don't even know if we ever brought this up, but something we talked about was having office hours where there was like a coffee time meetup that was just standing and anybody could come to, and
I like that.
have like that be the touch point. Now, again, does this sound familiar to anybody? Did we ever bring this up?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay, because that would be like a way to have that like check-in time that is a little bit looser. And so we thought about it as like a 2-hour window that like we would, like people getting used to, like, oh, that's my Homegrown Hillsborough time. And actually we had thought about it with other groups, like it being the same for all groups. And that way that would be your opportunity to connect with like another group,
Yes, you can just say, can we just meet at coffee time real quick and discuss this? Yeah, I like that.
And everybody can kind of like hold that time, but if it's, you don't have to show up, it's busy. Now with it being one working group, it becomes even better, I think, because versus it being like, it would have been open to 15 people, but now it's open to 5, but those 5 people are working together, you know, so that could be like a thing we implement. Anyways, just an idea that, like I said, we talked about, but never really.
Yeah, and I think that also gives a way, if we do open it up to network members that can come in and like meet and talk about what they have going on with the working group. I think even opening it up as open office hours, networking type.
Exactly, yeah.
That would be very beneficial.
And if there was always one representative.
Yeah.
Or a place to invite people you're trying to engage.
Yeah.
Right, because then over the course of the year, if you, let's say 5 leadership members, it's really just one person, it's just committing to 2 additional meetings, right?
Yeah,
And
if no one
everybody
shows
else
up, you
optional.
just do your other work,
Just
you
do your other
know?
work,
Yeah.
yeah.
Could that coffee time be on the road?
What do you mean?
Like, let's say I was trying to engage somebody and we could just say, let's have coffee time at this address this month.
Oh, moving it around.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is value in it being in a sublocation for the straggler. You know what I'm saying? If it's
Mhm.
moving, you lose people in
Oh,
terms
that's
of,
true. Yeah, that's true.
you know, but picking the location then becomes more important because it has to be super central.
I think a challenge that I've been having with engaging other people is that not everybody has the capacity to attend the meeting. So everybody's like, oh my God, that's great. Okay, Thursdays at, oh, I can't because blah, blah, blah. And that's like the challenge. It's really frustrating for me because I've met a bunch of people that would be wonderful to have at these seats, but that's what the idea I had about being on the road.
Yeah, I agree that it's nice and flexible, but I just think.
No, but
that
it makes sense. What you said makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense, yeah.
If you want to have that at a moving location, it just puts more work on you to be able to communicate that and know that people are hearing it on the other side.
No, and then it's not consistent, so there's no routine to it.
Yeah.
The idea is that it becomes routine, so it's second nature.
Yeah, and fun, right?
Yeah, and I think having a virtual option even for that could be valuable, because if we can't make it, it's like, hey, let me pop in real quick if I know that you're gonna be there, just, if you can't make the drive or whatever, but you still wanna pop in and say hello or learn what's going on, I do think having a virtual option within that.
And so just to talk about pros and cons, in my mind, when Elizabeth was talking about having like office hours on the road, I was thinking of like the Blind Tiger off Sly that we've all come to love.
I do love it.
What would a virtual option look like there? Is it a phone on speakerphone?
Oh, that's
Yeah,
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't work for that.
And so then if we do want to have virtual, it's a library room, right? Which requires you to book it, which requires, and so just pros and cons.
Yeah,
all of
no,
this stuff we can like build for, but you have to know going into it, so that way.
Well, I think it may also be dependent on who the group is.
Yeah, totally.
Like, what can they commit to, like, once it's decided and who's in that group, that's ultimately, I think, and we can provide these different options and ideas, and then they can lean in and decide.
I will say that, like, with a bigger group, I recently started chairing a alumni society for USF, and it's a big team, and they're all volunteer, and they're super engaged, but it's all honors college alum, so that makes sense, I guess. But we have 3 meeting cadences. Like, we meet every 6 weeks as a leadership team, then we meet, like, essentially 3 times a year as a town hall, it's called, so that's like general membership, and then we meet another 3rd time as committees, but only if you're on those committees. So you end up having like 2 monthly meetings and an additional like quarterly meeting, but it's like every meeting represents a different subset of people, and it is super effective.
Yeah.
Because like.
Well, we do that with our FPAC, where once we went from 6 weeks to once a month, and we have each side of the county has enough, like, an opportunity. We have engagement plans and pints, but then we also, if you're part of a subcommittee, so if we're trying to engage the county on something, then that's a subcommittee that you've said, hey, I'm going to be part of it, and that subcommittee then comes back to the.
And I just present that to say, like, that, like, we can get really creative. There's a ton of, and that model for the alumni society, I didn't invent, right? That was like something that I was Googling. I was like, okay, what's the best like way to do this, right? And that made sense for a group of volunteers, and every 6 weeks, and the school calendar made sense to me, like, during the breaks. And anyways, but that there's a ton of options on how we can blend in person versus, and then they're meeting for events, 7-8 times a year in person, right? So anyways, how you blend in person, virtual, what groups are coming together, what groups are not, is unlimited.
So, go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna ask, so I think, so what, as I'm listening to the conversation, I think one thing too to keep in mind, are there's like so many different people with different needs that are trying to do the work. And so like you have someone like myself where I'm just gonna be honest with you guys, like the 2 hours has become progressively the 1 2 hour meeting has become progressively harder for me, working in a corporate environment.
Yep.
And so like when you think about that time, so that's 2 hours, but then it's really more like 3 hours because for me, like that's why I couldn't come today because I'm literally in back-to-back meetings. So I have the time carved out,
Mhm.
but then I have to carve out an additional 30 minutes to get from my office to, like the library, whatever, and then another 30 minutes. So by the time it's all said and done, that's like 3 hours out of my day
Totally.
that is really, really hard, and it's become progressively harder for me. So I think about, and I love that you're saying that, Dahlia, that we can look at maybe some more creative ways of still engaging people and understanding that we may have, I mean, there are some folks who can be a little bit more flexible or like, there are people, maybe this is part of their jobs. And so it's not so much of an issue. Whereas myself, like, this is just, I'm doing this because this is passion work for me. And this is legit like volunteer work. Like my job is not, you know, uh, I'm not saying not supportive, but this is not like a sponsor thing through my job. So like carving out one meeting for 2 hours in a day is a little bit rough on someone like myself. But how do you not, like, you know, deter someone like myself who really wants to do the work, but they're kind of limited with their careers too. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there as well.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that. For sure.
And like I don't really know the answer, so but I'm not sure. Like the other thing is evening meetings. I don't think there's really an appetite for that.
Yeah.
Like to accommodate people that work
The
full
meetings
time.
will come with children.
Have the children, totally.
Because
Totally.
that's what would happen for me.
Totally, yeah.
So
So
we hate children, but they're still coming.
well, and I mean, when you think about like, okay, so how do other cross-collaborative organizations like get this stuff done? And I do think the answer is often evening meetings, but then they literally do come with kids or hiring someone to watch your kid or mother. Like it's another logistical hurdle. Plus, people that are paid full time. Like this is part of my professional salary job. So now I am having to commit to something outside of my job hours, which like me, okay, that's fine. But I don't know if that's a scalable sentiment.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have the reverse problem with it too.
Yeah.
And that's why I come back to like why I was presenting that there's 3 different meeting structures, and each one of those meets so our committee meetings, again, back to the society thing, meet during the workday. Because for the people that are on committees, they have the flexibility, they're whatever, so they meet during the workday. The leadership team is early evening. So we meet at like between 4 and 5, depending on the week, because it's like you're still more committed, but it still needs to be kind of on the end of your day and blah, blah, blah. Versus our town halls happened at 7 o'clock at night, because that's our general body kind of meeting, and it's trying to capture 30 plus people. And so it needs to happen in the evening hours, right? And it's the least frequent meeting too. So you're asking for that time less frequently. But I bring that back because you're not gonna, something I get, like, I hear a lot in the nonprofit space, or in just general business, when's the best time to have the meeting? The answer is never.
Never,
right?
never,
Never, yeah, you have to carve it out.
The answer is never.
Yeah.
So by creating a layered structure, right, where maybe it's an in-person meeting quarterly, but it's 3 hours, and then it's a, monthly meeting, but it's 30 minutes, and then, I'm just shooting at random stuff now, but I present that to say that's kind of where you can blend on where you can capture the majority of membership, like these people who can't do Thursdays, right?
Well, and then another thing is like, what kind, like the membership that we're attracting for these leadership roles, what is their responsibility? We're going to kind of talk about that in a bit, but like, if somebody who is not in a professional setting or professional food system setting, whose full-time job isn't it, can they take on the work of advancing the food system? So in addition to the meetings, can they also carve out time to research that feasibility study, attend that conference, watch that webinar, find that venue? And so is there like an advisory role and then a review role? Like these are truly, I just don't know. Are committees more of the worker bees and the leadership group is more of the direction?
I think it's just hard until you figure out who the working group leaders are and what their strengths are, you know? So.
Yeah.
And then how can you leverage some of the other things like the emerging professionals, things like that, to who's that person, maybe guide them to be the worker bee, right? So I think that you're right, until you know the capacity of who's applying or running.
But this is our question is, do you set a minimum capacity requirement in those co-chair roles? Like back to that access.
An hour. Like certain hours per month, sure, but I think like it's really hard to be like it's going to be this evening and then the working group people.
Oh, for sure. No, we wouldn't set the meetings.
Okay.
But I mean the
that makes sense. Sure.
Right? Sure. Because the reality is we also don't have more than even if you want to work more than 40 hours a week, we don't have more than 60 hours a week, right? There is a limit to how many hours you have, and I think this is a common issue is that you write. Or maybe this isn't for me. You write a new grant and it's a new program and it funds this new program at 10 additional hours. Okay, but that person doesn't all of a sudden just have 10 additional hours to give, right? And so it's like being.
So I think I liked the feedback from Janine about the hour. Maybe that's like when you're looking into it, looking at that cadence of maybe it's 2 1-hour meetings because now you have the check-in or then the coffee hours. So I mean, listening to that, 2 hours is a lot, right? Because you do think of the travel time, and it's pretty much blocking like half of my day for that. And I think that'd be flexible to be able to do like 1 hour. And it's also easier, depending on time, to hop on as a Zoom and still provide impact. And definitely, I know we talked about having in-person meetings, but having the Zoom as an option if something comes up and you're like, I can get away for at least 30 minutes to participate too.
All right, are we ready to move on to the next session? Any other thoughts around meeting attendance? Okay, so going on to term length. So we designed it for 2 years, and really because of the way that the budget cycles work, it ends up being like 17 months is the way the current one works, because by the time we got the funding and started moving and whatnot, we were attempting to get onto the fiscal calendar, and we sort of achieved that goal. So a new term time would be 21 months, which I think when we were doing this last week, I think it is 22 because of December still being like a month here. So it's really only September, October that you're not, but sorry, I think it's actually 22. I think that's wrong. But, having the term run December through September 30th. Which is why I think it's 22, because you only get October, November where you're not in leadership. But with that, essentially allowing elections to take place, nominations to take place in October, elections to take place in November, you would start again in December, and then you would run 2 years. The ultimate suggestion we have is we think 2-year terms, I know it's 22 months, is like the minimum viable term length, because it just allows for somebody to get adjusted to the role, understand the understand the work, actually start implementing and doing stuff, and then still allow for the freshness of new leadership to potentially come in and reinvigorate a group. Do you guys like that 2-year structure? Do you think it's not enough? Do you think it's too much?
I thought I really fast. At first I was like, oh, that's a longer commitment, but it came and went, right? And I think that we just started to get to, it takes a couple of meetings and months to get to learn and assess and figure things out. So I personally thought it's the right amount of time.
What are your terms on?
2 years as a chair, and then it's a 5-year revote from the county.
Okay, so that's essentially what Homegrown Hillsborough as a whole is on.
Yeah.
Oh, every 5 years the county yeah.
They have to sign whatever the word is that will be a chair that they'll continue. I mean, they're not supporting financially. They just
yeah.
Hey, we'll give you a government.
Let you use
so,
it.
Yeah. But 2 years is the chair role, and then it's a max. There's no term max, so there's not similar. Until people are lining up, and we don't have any open roles. So you can stay as long as you want.
Well, and theoretically, a robust democracy, term limits aren't needed. Because if you're not pleasing your constituents and you're getting voted out,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how robust our democracy is, but yeah.
I mean, that's what we do at the city too for my community benefits advisory councils are 2-year limits. I think it's hard sometimes for people to commit when you go a little bit longer because they just don't know what their life's going to look like then, you know?
2 years does fly by, that's
Yeah.
pretty short, but it is a long term when you're committing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's kind of just like with our goals too. It's like, oh yeah, we can obviously get this done in 2 years, and then you get to halfway and you're
Yeah.
like, ooh, okay, turns out like
Yeah.
because when you meet once a month, you know, and then if you don't have accountability standards for work outside, then it does, and like none of this is like specific to this is across every group.
But if you meet once for 2 years, it's 24 meetings, which is 22 meetings, and then that's like 1 month's worth of work, really, that you're giving to the project, right? If it was your full-time job, let's say, right?
Yeah.
And even those meetings are like two hours. It's not like you're meeting for an 8-hour day, right? So if you actually like average out, like if you get down on yourself, we didn't accomplish the goal. Like, okay, we actually only had a week, like, you know, of like dedicated time to doing that thing. So, okay, it sounds like 2 years makes sense. Any other thoughts?
Good.
No? Okay. All good? All right. So we're moving through. The next one is about leadership roles. So we worked within a co-chair structure versus like president and vice president. We established other roles, but never really operationalized them. I mean, there was some work. Amanda's been fantastic.
Yeah, you've been a great secretary.
Yes.
But we wanted to basically get better about our leadership roles. And so our suggestion is actually to adopt a chair-vice chair structure opposed to a co-chair structure. We just think it can help delineate responsibility and decision-making, but then to also do a better job of formalizing the secretary and treasurer duties. We actually played around the idea of 2 secretaries to make 5 like voting members. And in the interest of not just having like a 5th straggler, not really responsible for anything person, but because we find the secretary role to be, and with some of our new attendance requirements and things like that, to be a bigger lift, or at least an administrative lift. So that's our suggestion. And the deviation from the co-chair structure, we're open to maintaining it. Our thought process is just it can help delineate. We heard a lot of like, well, was it the other person's responsibility or was it my responsibility? Who is the main point of contact, right? And so being able to delineate that and then create like a clear chair is responsible for these things, vice chair is responsible for these things. You're not actually co-doing the same things. Thoughts?
Makes sense.
I think it makes sense.
So what's the structure at PAC?
We have we have chair, vice chair, and then we just have very specific categories. So we have 2 farmers, a nonprofit, but it's just mainly just the, I guess, chair and vice chair.
Now, are you a farmer or a chair?
I'm a chair, and I was the distributor. So basically the chair is determined from the list. So I'm listed as the chair and then the retail and grocer expert.
Okay.
So, and then that could kind of shift if another retailer comes in, then I could go into a farmer role. We're actually really lucky at 4 farmers on our FPAC now.
Yeah.
But it just, I liked, for us, it's just very specific because like we need someone from Department of Health, we need someone from UF, we need someone from Pasco County.
Yeah.
So that helps us determine how can we move the system work forward with these stakeholders. Like a dietitian is listed on there too, right? And then we have the schools. But from those groups, then we nominate the chair and then vice chair.
And that's how we are thinking of doing it too, is people, when they are applying for the working group leaders, they're not applying for a specific position. That's what I did it with you all, with you applied to be a co-chair, and we even had a question, is it only co-chairs are getting paid? If you don't get paid, do you still want a position? And some people said no. And so that, as we were literally creating these working groups, we, structured it based off that. What we would do is 5 people get elected, and then immediately those 5 people are nominating their chair, vice chair, secretary too, and then treasurer.
And that's what kind of happened with the secretary roles, was just, I have the capacity, right? Because the Department of Health, she has an intern that she brings with her. Like, I'll always have an intern, so that intern can always be the secretary.
Yeah.
And then we don't have a treasurer because we don't have any money right
Yeah.
to come.
Yeah.
But it has helped because now, because before I was like, well, who's gonna do the minutes, like when I took over, I was like, no, we need like a designated secretary, we don't have one. But I think that helps too. I mean, you understand what you're responsible for.
Okay. And then I guess we didn't talk about this either, but if we were to have a at-large working group and then committees, these committees probably also need these roles.
I don't think necessarily. I think you could have,
There's more.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that also you would have maybe require one of the leadership to be on each committee. Like, I don't think it'd be right to have.
That's
that.
true. Yeah.
And then that person could just be the ultimate, like,
Yeah.
this is in the budget, this is not in the budget, like, this is, allowed.
And bringing it back
this is
to
not. Yeah. Because still, we'll talk about compensation, but we would only pay leadership, right? There's no scenario where you just pay everybody, right? And so, I do think if you're then breaking out to committee, in order to maintain those committees, you need that leader, that paid individual to be engaged with it.
And that's how we run our subcommittees.
Because it's more action oriented in my mind, right? The committees. Any other thoughts around this? We have 2 more kind of categories. How are we doing on time? Oh, great. Yeah. All right. So another problem not unique to us is operational tools and logistics for collaborative groups. And so for cohort 1, we used Google Drive, and then we have the private platform page for working group leaders. What we're suggesting is to continue to use a shared drive folder for working documents, such as the things that need to be edited, and then make a standard of communication to remain in the platform when corresponding with the entire group. So still trying to move away from those group emails, and then create a working group subgroup that requires, so on the platform, we would have a subgroup kind of, right now we have the 3 platforms, we would move that all into one big group. And in order to enter that group, it would require you to do a module on what it means to be a part of the working group. Super brief, nothing crazy, just like you're not just posting random events in here, right? It is dedicated to working group function. And if you're interested in attending meetings, you should be in this working group to learn about it. So basically a short module on how to be how to be a general member of the working group in order to get access to the page where all the working group information would be on. Again, this goes back to our secondary secretary role, so that the division of secretary function can be, one of the persons dedicated to attendance and in-person secretary work, and then the second person be dedicated to the platform. And so you have that division. So that's our suggestion. It's not that different, but with the consolidation of one working group, just making sure that there's still good processes in place.
I like that. This is very clearly defined roles. Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it worked for me, is I knew where to go to find stuff, so no complaints. It's easy enough, everyone's got access to it.
Anna did a great job when I was like, hey, can you send me the link? She's very kind, it's in there.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be the goal, is like everything should live there.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to be digging through your emails, you don't have to be going through your text messages, it should all be there. The platform is not perfect, so having working docs, it will be a link to a Google Doc. Access to the Google Doc. That sucks. Whatever, but one of the things that we should kind of talk about is right now we have a working group leaders page. Would it be a working group members page? Do we want to have a distinction between the leaders and the at-large members? Because in theory, we want people from our network to be on the working group.
Well, there's certain tools that the working group leaders are the only ones that are going to use, right? So and maybe it's just the one, right? Submitting.
Well, you guys might want to chat about something, right? So I guess we could have a working group. So on the platform, you can have a group, subgroup.
Yeah.
So a good example right now is the food access group. You can't see, and actually this is an example, but it's not necessarily the best practice. You can't see the Healthy Neighborhood Working Store group until you're in the food access group. Actually, Savannah, can you pull up the platform? Yeah. And you can pull up the org chart too, which I think shows. Mm-hmm. So this right now is our working group leaders group. Only working group leaders can see it. It doesn't, no, on the page, nobody else can see it. We have to invite you to it. Or like our moderator has to invite you to it. So if you scroll all the way up, Savannah, go to the little people on the right. And then click on maps group structure.
Oh, I never knew that was that.
You probably don't have it.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it might be administrator. But we can elevate you to this role. But this is how we have a little bit more back end. So you can see that we have our main page that everybody is there, and then these subgroups within the main page, and then within Farm to School there are subgroups within that. Just a little behind the scenes, we're probably going to get rid of those subgroups just because it adds more. We don't really need it. Like we don't. Once again, we're not bursting at the seams, and so we don't need to subdivide even more. And originally with Farm to School, Jenna Kazmarski was going to kind of like build that out, and so she wanted to have these subgroups, and it just never really happened. So now it's just kind of confusing because there's these subgroups. But the thing about having these subgroups is that when you post an event in the food production working group, it only gets sent out to food production working group members.
Yes.
Which is advantageous if we want to have a refined, like, we want people to go in and join the groups that they're interested in, but it also means that somebody's on the main page that hasn't made it into the food production working group, they can't see that meeting. There isn't a way for people, we have not figured out a way to have like a mass calendar. In my dream world, the main page would basically be an aggregation of all of these across, and then you could click on it and go into that group and see it. But that's not how this world works. So you can see over, right, that's where the working group leaders are. You guys are like, that's a secret bubble that no one else knows about unless you're in it. So we could have a working group where it could be open, anybody could be in it, and then within that, a working group leaders. The working group meetings would be published in the working group general, but then you all could ask, you could talk amongst yourselves, basically, or these future working group leaders. It's a little confusing, but it's one of those things that once you set it up and everyone kind of gets it, I think it could be advantageous, but it is technology and it comes at a learning curve. So
I think having a working group leaders of your leader roles would be beneficial for sure.
And so something that you're going to see is right now our social on the 25th, we group leaders, because that was for you all. We are going to open it up to the network for us, the social part. So we're going to have our evaluation. So you guys are going to get double invites basically, because it's going to be on the main page, and it's also going to be the working group leaders. So it's annoying for you all.
That's fine.
I'm under the impression double calendar events are better than no calendar events, but but those kind of things happen. But I do think that we might revamp this. Like, we might get rid of planning and policy just because it's kind of a dead group. Like, nothing really happens in it. But then also if we I don't know. That's kind of a different side conversation. The platform is a tool that we should either use or get rid of. Like that, and I think that we should use it. I think that it is worth it. Okay, I'm glad to hear that. So also what we can do is we can have it so that in order to get into a group, you have to complete an online module. So immediately upon completing an online module, you will get access to a group. So we can use that for things like grants. We can use that for things like trainings. So if we wanted to have just a simple video that everyone had to watch that said, this is what the working group does, these are our expectations, these are our stated goals, they watch that, they can hit an attestation box, and then now they're in the working group. That would just kind of help onboard people without having to start every meeting by clarifying those things for new people. So, the technology exists, but it does take intentional sitting and figuring it out, which is maybe a committee. I don't know, right? Like, maybe that's a committee that the working group starts with, is the onboarding and technology committee or something. But yeah, there's power in it.
That's a good idea though, because we've been trying to sit people in front of trainings. They can get like a little blurb of everything.
And it can be literally a 5-minute video. Like, it doesn't have to be an extensive multi-hour quiz. It can just be like, if you want to join the working group, then you watch a quick little video, like I said, that just says, We expect you to be on time. This is how we, these are the working group leaders that ultimately vote on behalf of the working group, but they listen to the members, and you should be advocating for your thoughts through these working group leaders. We have this much money. This is our program goal. Okay, now you're in. And so just it's weird because we
I like that idea.
heard from people that like, if I'm not a working group leader, I'm not really sure what my role in this group is, and that's totally legit. That's totally legit.
Yes, I like that idea, the little video.
And then as far as like Google Drive, I think that's just going to be like one day of annoyingness where everyone has to commit to using a Gmail. And we considered giving you all Gmail accounts through the well, but then we were like, we don't.
We asked you guys that. You guys said no.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. Because
then it's another email.
It's another email.
Another email.
Yeah. But it does make it so that you have a well-built email, then we don't have to worry about sharing things with you.
Okay.
Because you're in the universe.
Oh, well, if it makes it cleaner for you guys, then maybe it should be.
It's not really about us. It's really it's about what makes it easier.
I mean, once we have, you guys give you the email address, you have access to it.
Yeah, totally.
It's the
Yeah,
same,
good.
you know.
Yeah.
And you're gonna go in there anyway to access.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it shouldn't affect storage capacity because if you're making it in the group, the folder is still made in the Wells Drive. So it shouldn't really affect your individual, that was the other thing is like sometimes they hear like, oh, I'm out of capacity. And that's because you guys have private, individual accounts versus a corporate account. But if you're truly making it in the drive, in the folder, it's stored in the Wells Drive anyway. So it shouldn't really affect that. It's when you make it not in the folder that then you're building.
You're using your space.
You're using your space, yeah.
So, anyways, operational tools. Any other thoughts?
I like the idea of the video.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think that's a good idea.
All right.
Sure. The last one is compensation. So the cohort 1 model is that we paid co-chairs limited to 10 hours per month. The rate was $22 an hour, and they had to submit a form to get paid. Other leaders all the leaders had access to this, but the leaders that weren't chairs were compensated through the opportunity of continued education funding. We did find that those were largely underutilized by our leadership teams, and we did open them up to the wider network, and people are utilizing them, which is great. And then working groups had a budget of $15,000 for project and program administration. Again, we found that was like a lot of groups couldn't organize to spend that amount. And then also something that we're trying to be more intentional about going forward is that the purpose of Homegrown Hillsborough is truly collaborative work. And we found that we were granting a lot to individual organizations.
Yeah.
We want to shift away back to collaborative work, and project budgets, working group budgets are not, there could be still a mini grants component, but the majority of the budget still being used for collaborative projects with, 2 or 3 or more partners on those projects. So our suggestion is to, with the one working group, have all 5 leaders get paid via stipend because we are consolidating these, and creating a compensation system that enforces ownership, deliverables, and fiduciary accountability. Like, we have a responsibility to manage these dollars correctly, and those are kind of the parameters we put in place. But we also want you guys to feel ownership and responsibility about management of those funds. And back to that idea of truly promoting a systems, which means a collaborative funding implementation, right? So yeah, what are some thoughts around that?
Do you get compensated for FPAC?
No, not yet.
No. Yeah.
To be determined.
And so most people on the FPAC board, I guess you said you have farmers, what motivates them to participate?
So some are because they're related to the county. It's just their desire to move food system and policy work forward. Mm-hmm. Farmers is to have a voice that they didn't have before, and to learn. Mostly everybody is part of it either because it's we'll just use the Department of Health, Pasco Hernando State College. It's supported by their organization to do this as a support. The volunteers, which are mainly the farmers, it's so that their voice is at the table within policy. So they're taking the time just to make sure, and a lot of it is learning. So
that's surprising that 4 farmers are involved because every farmer I know is
Busy.
right?
Yeah.
So we have 4 involved, 2 show up regularly, but 2 will chime in and at least read the email and send policy recommendations. We only meet once a month on a Friday, 2 to 3:30. We have had quorum. I think that it's the topics that are driving people to come. So we're very specific about what topics we're talking about, and a lot of them just don't understand policy, to be honest. I didn't understand policy until I got involved. So it's this level of, this is worth their time because they're learning something that they might be able to take and be able to move things forward and kind of create change within what's happening in our county. And we are looking at paid food policy advisory councils that exist and who's funding them, how are they funded, and what that looks like. That's actually part of what we're looking at right now, because I don't think it's right that we're involving all of our time in that. So I think that this is fair if you're in the work already and you're trying to enhance your skills, you're trying to learn more about food systems, create collaborative, and the great collaboration. I will say, like, I was like the underutilizing the continuing education. It was, I think that for me, it was like time and how can I fit that in and what that looks like. It wasn't I didn't want to because it's like,
that's what everybody's.
and then and then you're like, wait, will it really like pay for all of that, right? So it's great that it pays for it, but then at what cost to the other pieces of it? But I think that using, even just going to the Food is Medicine event, I wouldn't have been able to do that, right? So that just was very, very helpful. I do have just an odd question, because I know I reached out to you, and I know there wasn't very much left. When does it available? Will it be that November timeframe after the elections have happened?
Continuing education?
Continuing education.
TBD. Yeah, it depends on how these conversations go.
Okay.
Yeah. Because what we have heard is that like paying for a conference, paying for a training, paying for half of it, the other half is the time. And so if we can just bundle these money into a general pot and you all as working group members can decide, oh, we want to send Nicole to this conference because it's going to advance our working group. Maybe we don't earmark money in continuing education that just sits there stale. Maybe it's part of a bigger pot. Literally TBD. Yeah.
And that goes back to the treasurer having real responsibility and being
Yeah.
able to determine, is this, I do kind of want to share the idea.
I think
we
so,
do.
yeah.
So we have another idea. And I mean, we're going through this process because we truly do want input. Ultimately, at the end of the day, like, we do recognize that we have decision-making power over these conversations. So I want to be transparent, like state that for what it is. An idea that we have that we are like interested in trying out is opposed to, so there'd still be like a stipend amount for these 5 working group leaders, but again, in the interest of really promoting a collaborative food system advance, like, and that movement forward towards achieving the goals, opposed to having essentially letting people draw down from a bucket of money.
Yeah.
So opposed to you having a set number of hours that is like 10 hours, you have a set number of hours that's 5 hours, and then you can bill for each additional hour that you work. So creating a bucket of money that is you can bill towards at a set rate. So we would say the rate is, let's call it $20 an hour. I forget what we talked about. And if you, Nicole, are going to take on achieving these 5 action items for this goal, and as a group you decide that is 10 hours of your time to advance those goals, you now can essentially bill for 10 additional hours to accomplish those tasks.
For services rendered.
You come back to your working group and you say, I've done these things. They say, yes, you have. And then on your next
They say, yes, you have, and that does the 10 hours of work. If you say, I'm going to go call this food policy council, it's going to take me 12 hours, your peers are going to be like, no, it's not.
did not.
No, it's not. It's going to take you 2 hours. And so that way we can, because like what we did see was that because there wasn't ownership over these dollars, people were like, sure, we'll pay $15 for a thing of kale because it's not our money. And so it's like, but in the real world, no one's going to do that. So we don't want to set false expectations when you get out to the real world outside of the Homegrown Hillsborough bubble, where people go, I'm not going to pay you $100 an hour for this service, versus because people were just like, well, we have $15,000, we want to spend it on our people. Okay. And so that's the fiduciary part, is that we want, without having people have like their own skin in the game, how can they treat these dollars as their dollars? And so we brainstormed this as a way to, like, it's not to be a zero-sum game, but it kind of is. So,
well, there would still be that stipend for the time it takes you to attend the meetings, and like the time you spend in the meeting would be the stipend, versus the hours outside of the meeting would be what you could build down towards. And even if it's 1 hour, if it's 2 hours, and it would be agreed in the meeting, okay, these are all of the next steps. Okay, Nicole, how long do you think that's going to take you? I think 1 hour here, 2 hours
I'm the treasurer,
here,
I'm writing down
5 hours. Okay, do we think 8 hours, up to 8 hours is fair? Yep, we think that's fair. Great. I'm going to earmark 8 hours at $25 an hour.
And then you go do 8 hours of work, you come back and you're like, 8 hours wasn't enough, I need 4 more hours.
Yeah.
And that's the process of when you have a float, right?
Yeah, I think I like that a lot, because I do think that if, say, you have more capacity during a certain time of the year, you can take on a project, and you can say, hey, I'm going to take, like, I can advance this quickly during this month because I have the extra time. I think that's great. I think that also maybe looking at the dollar amount based on the level of work and expertise, right? The skill set that needs to be done.
Yeah, we hear you. We do think in the interest of not being able to, we can't manage different rates. The reality
that
is.
Makes sense.
So like, I hear that, but also we can't manage different rates. So we would probably just have to pick a standard amount, and then, because the other reality is I have to manage all this on the back end. And so.
Well, and like the point of
that could also be, I'm sorry, a mini grant. So if it.
Sure,
that project requires more, it's a higher level capacity project.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Then you put out an RFP to the network, and somebody comes back and says, yeah. No, and so, and like, Homegrown Hillsborough is supposed to be a sandbox where we can practice and then take it out to the big leagues and go get real customers at a scalable level. But you have to start in the sandbox. So we still want to maintain that kind of sandbox mentality, but we don't want it to just be monopoly money. Like, it has to be real, because it is real. So I'm seeing Janine shake her head. So yeah, this is kind of what we brainstormed. We didn't debut it to the other groups yet because we wanted to see if people had a compensation system of their own.
People outside of the leaders to get paid as well.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But they have to come to a meeting. They have to commit to work. But the secretary has to say it's in the budget.
Yeah, that's like, oh, I could take this on, and that they're great. They have the skills to do that. And it's like, we don't have to take that on. Yes, please. You know, like,
totally.
And we'll just advance from the leadership side. I like that.
Also, as far as
opportunity to invest time.
Attendance is, if you don't show up, you don't get paid for your meeting hours. So like, that's a little bit more of a kind of accountability thing. So.
And it's an actionable step.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Action. You notice the trend?
No, so when you said this earlier, when you said, how do we hold work accountable in between? And so at the end of the meeting, like Dahlia said, you'd be like, okay, so Nicole's going to call this group. Elizabeth's going to go look for a venue. Amanda's going to go read this report. So, this total hours. When we come back next time, these are deliverables. Okay, now we're in the next meeting. Well, Elizabeth didn't have time to go to the venue, so you will not get paid for those services. Yes. And so your treasurer will have to kind of keep a running tab of, I mean, there's probably accounting terms for this. Accounts receivable, accounts payable, I don't know, like, but like, services that have been promised and then actually delivered. So it kind of gives, you know what I'm saying?
Payable,
And so that was kind of what we were thinking, is in this big pot of money that just gets reduced.
And you can buy supplies with that pot of money. You can put billable hours. And what we're trying to recognize too is sometimes, like when we prioritize market research, that is just hours spent.
Yeah,
that's
just time.
It's just time spent, and it's not
reading
sexy time spent, right? It's not the time that everybody's signed up to go. Especially, like, we also recognize that a lot of people are in this space because they're doers and they like to be the physical people in front of people. But that a lot of the systems component happens sometimes not in front of people. It happens by doing a lot of computer work. And so how do we properly compensate people for that computer work time, and stop, recognize these dollars. I mean, I know personally, if I just had $30,000 for my personal organization, that'd be huge. And I don't think we're recognizing the gravity of those dollars in these settings, or not even 30. If you took the 15, 15, 15, right, that's $45,000. That'd be huge for any one organization. Yeah. And we're not really recognizing that gravity and that impact that those dollars can have in the current structure. And so we're hoping that this billable hour, a working group being responsible for every dollar and billable hours being a component of how you can utilize those dollars, encouraging more action, encouraging more deliverables.
And encouraging more participation.
And encouraging more
Because
participation.
people are, like, if someone has time, say someone's in the food system work, or like a dietitian, right? Maybe they're looking for a contract right now, and they have time to do some of the research or in the field work. They can now be paid for that. And it's not only relying on the 2 leaders or the 5 leaders. I think that and you may find other leaders through the work that they're doing, right? Totally. So as they say, hey, I'll do this, and they come back with quality work, and they're able to, I think that it's going to create more ownership too.
And this is back, I'm just thinking about operationists from the accounting perspective, because I wasn't immediately thinking about general members taking on those hours. Just from like accounting perspective, I have to enroll you as a 1099, et cetera, et cetera. Yes. It's not impossible, but I would think maybe back to like the module piece, or I would need some sort of commitment that you're not just going to bill me for 1 hour to set you up as a 1099.
Right. I think it's people showing, that
so
are
that might be something
coming to the meeting.
Yeah, I think wait to see if there's even interest from people to do that, and then see.
But it's
but then if they take on a project, then they have to take on a role, because you're right, because if you're going to have access to like background information, then you have to take on some kind of role.
Or if they just have to be an organization that has a way to accept money. Yeah. Right, so that they can just send us a bill and we can just pay the bill.
Oh, well, that's more the request for services piece. So for RFPs, like larger projects, that's fine.
But do you think
I'm just thinking
individual hours too? We could just
because the 1099 piece, even another company is ultimately like a 1099. It's a WI. So you still have to like set, which a company is a little bit easier. So yes, that could be a potential workaround. Anyways, just something to consider on the accounting side too is. I would so if it was a company, again, it's really, then it would be about exceeding $600 is ultimately the answer. Again, this just comes down to how it actually works. Yeah.
That's the threshold for the 1099?
That's the threshold for a W-9. So like a company, I don't have to.
So then if the project is smaller than 600,
Pardon?
600
is the threshold where I need a lot more information from a person, which actually could apply to the individual too, I think. So I think it depends. If they're taking on a lot of work, then it makes sense to establish them as
they'll find who.
Exactly. I think we can cross that bridge as we get there. Yeah. The $600 is the threshold. So once somebody exceeds $600, the reporting for them is different.
Okay. Just make it like a 10 people outside of the 5 people will be allowed to do this, and those are 10 people. And just call it that or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Put some kind of.
In reality, though, even though it's $600 is the rule, I still want to collect the information from you, even if you do 1 hour, because it's better to have the information than not. Anyways, we can kind of cross it. I'm just thinking about the logistics. Here you guys say general members can bill. Wasn't my initial thought process, but.
Well, maybe not just, maybe not general members, but members that are active within the working group. So
right, like Joanna for another working group gets paid, right? Yeah. And so it's okay. But again, she's on a more of a service contract. So just keeping that in mind for general members. I think it's possible. I was just trying to speak a lot here. But you guys like it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's some positive changes.
Okay, cool. We put a lot of thought into all this.
But it shows.
Okay, good. I was going to say, I'm not sure if it actually came through, but so those are kind of our main segments. We do have a little bit of time left. Some other
talk about next steps in terms of the social and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, I usually rattle them off for other meetings, and I don't know if I will do as good job, but so basically at our September social, we're gonna have the meeting part first, and we're gonna go through the goals of each group and kind of just measure progress towards them. We'll give you guys I think, our final decision on how we want to advance forward the working groups, and then we'll open it up now this more social hour to the larger working group.
And
Two.
what we'll probably
Sorry, the
do
larger network.
is consensus-based, which means that we will bring back a proposal for you, and unless you have critical concerns,
Yes.
probably assume that that is the direction.
Mhm.
Based on the feedback. And then, like I said in the beginning of this meeting, you do still have to fill out that form.
Mhm.
It has spots for all of these different segments. So if you think of something later, if you didn't want to share it today, you have the opportunity to do that. And then, and that is posted on the working group leader. And then as you kind of think about other like things with technology, like it doesn't have to be between now and September. Just as you go out and join more collaboratives, see examples, talk to people that have it, like we're consistently open for feedback. And so, but we would like to start the next cohort with more, I mean, we had pretty like pretty good structure with you all. It's just that kind of along the way, it was flexible, and that's fine because it was our first time doing it. So rest of August, submit the evaluation through the Google form. September, there's not really a lot of homework for you all besides just submitting that form. Just come ready to kind of hear. And we'll do the evaluations, and then we'll have a social. We are going to open that social to other members of the network, so that hopefully we'll get a few more people that will want to come and just celebrate. And then if you want to be in a position of leadership again, we'd love for you to nominate yourself. If you think of other members that would be good members to be part of this leadership, then nominate them too. And then October, you'll see announcements through the platform and the newsletter that nominations are open. They'll close on November 1st or October 31st.
Oh, nominations. Yes.
Nominations, and then voting will begin. And then at our conference, we will have voting and then announcements. So, and then December, we will start online training for our next batch of leaders.
Yeah, sounds good. Question, do you want our responses put on, like, do you want me to write it and put it in
the form?
Yeah, no, I mean, when I post like our notes from our meeting, do you want this posted with notes, or no, it's just for your guys' internal?
Notes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're good. Yeah, but thank you.
Okay.
And so we do have, I don't think it's accessible to you guys, but we can put it in your folder so you see it. But yeah, I think we're probably just going to aggregate all
We
of
do
it.
a lot of the same things too. Like
Yeah.
I said, everybody's kind of aligned. It does sound like one working group is what people want. It does sound like, what else are some of the big level items here? Delineation of goals, being more clear. Like, I don't think there's any like stark differences between group to group that, somebody feels really adamant about one person, which we're glad to hear.
And then some other things that we didn't really have like a structured conversation around, but that's on the PDF that you'll see. Some other like issues or just things to notice. Leadership turnover, 71% of our original members. You actually you kind of were a sturdy 4 and stayed that sturdy 4. So 100% of our economic development members stayed, but you were always down a person, but whatever.
That's true. I kind of forgot we were down.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that we didn't do this term that we want to do next term is doing more roll call votes. So when we do want to make decisions about something, to say, all right, Nicole, yay or nay, Elizabeth, yay or nay, and have the secretary write those things down. We didn't really ever get to the point where we needed roll call votes, but we're hoping that we will. Things like funding, accepting quotes, decisions to be made, policies, things like that. And so with roll call votes, you do need to have an odd number, so that way you're not just stuck at a 2 versus 2. So the intention of the working groups, we talked about this a little bit, and we probably should have dived a little more into it, but we really want to spend time with this next cohort of talking about the difference between collaboration, partnership, and then like delivered by. So like ultimately this working group is supposed to be a collaborative process where a new mixture of action is happening versus a good example actually is Janine with Cultivate Your Brand. Paying Janine to do a program that she knows and does, that is more of a services delivered, a more of a partnership. It's not necessarily a collaboration. Like Janine didn't necessarily get with people and say, what are the specifics? What's a new mixture of my old deliverable. We know that she's good at this. She's done it before. She'll do it again. She'll be reliable. So partnerships can still be a thing, but the intention is to do these collaborations. And I think that a way that collaboration can be addressed is through our sectors, so is production, distribution, processing, are all these sectors represented? How much of it? And food system work should be intersectional, transdisciplinary, all of that. And so just having a more emphasis on that, and we're not really sure how to do that either, but just to kind of set that stage going forward. The effectiveness of these meetings. So we did the PALs, we'll do it in a second. Overall, I think that the PALs is useful just because it helps people kind of like evaluate the meetings. I found another meeting effective inventory. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting was one of the evaluation metrics is, can you pull it up? I don't know if it's possible. Yeah, okay, here it is. So, clarity of goals, general level of participation, who chaired the meeting, leadership during the meeting, and then this next one, balance of the chairperson versus a staff member. So for your purposes, this is, did Savannah run this meeting or did the chairperson run this meeting? And the goal is that it should be all chair. It should be we want to be flies on the wall, and like I said, our role should be to press record on the recording button. And so I thought that was a good new perspective, quality of decision making. So PALS was an easy way to just introduce this idea of evaluation, but like everything else, it's already been done before, so we can borrow from other examples. So that was something to kind of consider. Responsibility between meetings, we've already talked about extensively. How do we get work done in between meetings? Mission creep and focus on goals. We'll kind of, I think, more casually talk about that in September. We're basically going to ask you all to say, did you accomplish your goals or not? And I think that some groups might totally have accomplished their goals. Some groups might have mildly, and some groups will not have accomplished their goals. And that's fine. It's like, we're not failing anybody. It's just you have to get the big check or X ultimately. And then one thing that we would like to get better about is grievance mediation and facilitation. And that's just anybody that is operating in community-based groups needs to have a better understanding of those processes. And I would say that for us from Homegrown Hillsborough staff, that is one of our weaker points. And it's just because I've never been to a mediation training. Yeah. So that's something that I think that we are going to look at. But I also think it'd be useful for our working group leaders to also be
it's also a transferable skill. So totally. Think about like going to the acre training. Like that's a skill that you're teaching that's going to have the ripple effect. Same thing with mediation, right? That skill will have the ripple effect and people become more comfortable and confident in being a leader in a working group if they get some training, if they've never been part of that. So I think that's anything that's a transferable skill, I think you'll have people wanting to.
I listened to a webinar. It was actually that like food and farm food trail, which I never really followed through on that. And they got this regional food system partnership grant. I think $600,000, big effort. And the woman, when she was evaluating the process, said that one of the things they did not account for was infighting within the group. And they basically had to stall their project by 4 months in order to hire an outside facilitator and create a grievance process.
Oh my gosh.
in order for them to get it just because she's like, we didn't have these things created. And so they did it and it worked and everyone got out on the other side. But like, she's like, in hindsight, we would have gone into this process with a grievance process and an external facilitator.
I mean, it just makes expectations clear, just in case something does pop up.
So. And when you have disagreements, how do you not get nasty about it? And then when you do get nasty, how do you overcome it?
Yeah. That's exactly the point I was going to bring up with the funding of the mini grants and all that. It needs to be a more structured process so that it's not like the announcements don't need to be such a, like, it's just funding.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to be like, I'm going to hold your hand because I only gave you $20 and you wanted $100. Like, I don't understand why that happens.
Yeah.
Monica, can you repeat that? Was that the one you had sent us about, like, can we get together and watch that? Okay.
Yeah.
Because that sounds like a very...
You would love it. You would love it. And I think it could be a really cool outcome for a Homegrown Hillsborough working group to basically create something like that, where they have a food and farm trail that pushes people towards these stakeholders. So it seemed really cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And I just love that they're sharing the system side
Mhm.
of things and the
Mhm.
opportunity, because the more people you get into decision making and the more personalities and experiences and all of that, mediation and leadership through challenges and difficulties is a skill that you develop going through the difficulties, right?
Yes.
Like, you don't just have that skill you learn from having to have conversations.
Experience-based, for
It's
sure.
all experience-based.
100%. And again, it goes back to your parenting example, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
why is your sister your best friend sometimes, even though, like, no one's ever hit me beside my sister.
Right.
And yet, she's my best friend, right? And so it's like, why are we so strong? And it's because she hit me and we had to come out the other
Yes.
end, and our parents parented us through that.
Yes.
And like, we're stronger because of it, right?
Yes.
She doesn't hit me anymore, just either. But like, that is grievance management. That is like, we are stronger actually when we have hard things that we go through together, right?
Yes, that's true.
And so maybe we need a signature. Maybe we're just parents.
Yeah.
Let's do the pals and then we can wrap up.
We also, I don't think we posted it yet, but we do launch your nominations for Homegrown Hillsborough Award.
Oh,
yeah,
yes, good call, yeah.
All right. Nicole, 1 through 5, participation?
5. I would say 5 as well.
9?
5.
This would be accomplish achievement, Nicole?
Yes, we got through the whole thing.
I know, very well. 5 as well.
5.
Were people focused and mindful?
Oh, I absolutely. I think there's a lot of great conversation and feedback that was given, so.
Yes, 5 as well.
I agree, 5.
Do we stick to our agenda and use it time-wise?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And with 5.
Yeah.
Great job, Ryan.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you for putting this
Yeah.
together, guys.
Yeah.
This was amazing.
Thank you, guys. It's great seeing everyone.
Because that webinar is